Good afternoon. How you doing? This is the Alchemical Mindset. I am Renz, and I want to welcome you guys. If you're finding me for the first time, we talk about 360 degrees of life. And today, I'm not going to make some people happy in the fact that, as you saw by the title, we are entering this age. We are in this age of Aquarius, and things will change. And I realized that in order to go into a golden age, in order to move higher on the scale, a lot of our political, a lot of our cultural boundaries have to change. And it's interesting that this year, 2020, was supposed to be, or is, according to many, a year of clear vision. And I was contemplating this yesterday and then had a vision of a dream last night. And in that, I was contemplating the fact that what has this year revealed to us so far? We're ending the 7th month of this year. For many in numerology, 7 is a number of completion, and we're going into 8th month, which is a number of abundance, right? So what have we discovered this year so far? What have we realized so far this year? And that's the Gregorian calendar, by the way, that formed after the Julian calendar. In truth, we are not going into the 7th month, the 8th month. We are going into the 6th month, because the new year actually begins, for the earth, begins in March, in the spring. So we're going into the 6th month. So let's be naturally, universally correct in that. But for the mindset of man, which we know man can create his own universe, can create his own effects upon the universe. It is not the universe affecting man, but man affecting the universe. And we affect our own universe. So in that, we continue and realize that this is the year 2020, a year of clarity, a year of vision, as many have said. And I look at this year thus far, and in looking at this year, it was foreshadowed by something as simple as a Snickers commercial, right? If you remember this Snickers commercial from the Super Bowl, this Snickers commercial demonstrated that the world is in turmoil. The world is hangry. The world has problems. The world is unsettled. There's a whole lot of unrest. The Snickers commercial foreshadowed many and most of what is happening in our world thus far this year. The world has done things it hasn't done in a very long time, and that is, we have had worldwide disruptions. And we haven't really had that in a very, very long time. Most young people today, people my age and below, have never experienced a worldwide disruption to what we're experiencing now. Yes, we've had worldwide economic issues, but we are having a worldwide social and political issues. And in the Snickers commercial, it talked about how the world needs to be satisfied. And the Snickers had to be dropped into the big giant hole to satisfy the hangriness of the world, so that we can come into one. And this reminds me of a seminar I participated in a few years back, and I broke down some of the symbology of the story of the Tower of Babylon. Now, I'm not trying to move anyone towards any religion, but if you go and look at the Hebrew version, not the Sumerian version, but look at the Hebrew version of the story of Babel, and it symbolizes greatly why I say we need to move into a one world government. A one world, no more countries, allegiances to nationalities and flags, and allegiances to I'm a Democrat, Republican, and then after that I'm an American, and after American, I'm a North American, and then I'm a Western Hemisphere, and I'm a Northern Hemisphere. No more of that. No more of that. as we can demonstrate very simply in just a second. But let me explain this symbology, then I'll come back to that thought process. You see, in this story of the Tower of Babel, and I'm going to break it down symbolically, it is not a literal story. And the first words of it let you know that it's not a literal story, because the first words of it state that at this point in time, all the world spoke one language. At no point in time of history can we proclaim that all the world spoke one language. And during this time, this epoch of time, we know that there were people in China speaking an ancient Mandarin. There were people in Africa speaking ancient African languages, many of them. There were people in Egypt speaking the Egyptian language, the Sumerians speaking their Sumerian language. There were people in the Americas speaking their native language. The Europeans were speaking different languages throughout the European continent. There were people all over the world. The Aboriginals were speaking their language. There were people all over the world speaking different languages. So we know right off the bat that the story must be symbolic and not a literal story. And so let's just dismiss with the literal story. Now, I'm not trying to take away your religion, keep your religion, but what I'm looking for you to see is that this is a symbolic story. And maybe you've been taught this story incorrectly too many times. And this story has mainly been used to explain why there are other races. The language determined races. So just want you to think about that, because then that means that we are all of the same race and just adaptations, which I do agree that we are all of the same race, and we just have adaptations that has changed our skin tone, that changes our features based on the environment that our ancestors have been in. But to move forward with this idea of it being a symbolic story for you to understand how it pertains to today and why we need a one world, one unity, one peace, is because the story says that all spoke one language. Now, it is not language to which they are speaking of. We know that through the voice box, through language, we create vibration. If we are all speaking the same thoughts, that our language comes from our thinking, and we are in the same vibration, and we're speaking one thought, then there was unity. And the story says that man was able to accomplish anything he chose, even to reach the height of God. Now I want you to think about this. If you look at a chakra scale, which is back up here, everything below the heart is the physical world. Everything above the heart is the spiritual world. At the top, you have three below, three at the top. At the very top, you have your connection to the divine, your connection to the universe, your connection to God, whatever you call it, whatever you want to, whatever you call the creator of it all, or the universe, your Jehovah, Krishna, Brahma, whatever you call it, doesn't matter. It's all the same. But at the top, we reach that point of universal God, the Christ mind, the Buddha head. In order to do that, all your chakras must be aligned, and all your chakras must be vibrating in unity. So when all the world spoke one language, and in that speaking one language, man can do and accomplish great things, then when all the world is on the same vibration, when all the world is elevating their consciousness to that of the universe, to that of God, to that of the creator, to that of infinite and the infinite wisdom, then man can create and do anything. In this story, they built this tower. Again, the tower inside, not a physical tower. Yes, some may suggest it may have been a ziggurat that they were constructing, but truly they was constructing the body of man. And constructing the body of man, they all came in unity. They came together in peace, in harmony. I've always found it strange that God wanted to disrupt this harmony. But yet it has always been the doctrine that it was disrupted because man thought that he could be equal to God, and thus man's ego is what caused God to say we must disrupt this. But I see it symbolically as man being able to elevate his consciousness during a golden era. You see, we have to understand that when you look at archaeology, that this time frame was a golden era of man in that region of the world. That actually all over the world, man was unified in their isolations. The man was practically unified. That we developed great things and great ways of being during those time frames. That scientific achievements were occurring then that we can't duplicate now. We cannot build a pyramid in the way that the Great Pyramids of Giza are designed. We don't understand how the Mesoamericans built their pyramids and how the Chinese built their pyramids. We can't fathom the level of communication to which they must have been able to have on a vibratory level. So it was what I would say was in a golden era to which we are going into right now. They were able to be unified and do great things. So moving to today, the Snickers commercial is saying that if we feed the hangriness of the world and come unified, we would be able to end things like worldwide hunger. If we were unified as one world, we would end war. There would be who would we war against? Yes, there would be those who would think that we should not be together. That it's a conspiracy. And it's the Illuminati and the Masons and the Bilderbergs and every other secret organization that those who claim to know about are not part of, nor have dealt with someone who's a part of, and so they make wild accusations based on exterior things. Now, are there people trying to control the world, think that they are the best suited to determine how the world should function? Of course there are. This is part of our disruption. This is part of the God creator disrupting the language of man, disrupting the vibration of man. And so man's vibration is now disrupted. So we form countries and we have wars. We form political parties and we have war. We disband families because of different political thoughts or religious thoughts or emotional thoughts or cultural thoughts or racial thoughts. We disband and break the family unit because of these things. We feel the need to oppress others because of these things. But if we come into a world that is satisfied, we can end racism, we can end sexism, we can end disharmony in the family unit, we can end the disharmony in the community, we can end the disharmony in the state, the world, the country, whatever you want to call it. We can end it all. And if the world is united, then we can grow in our achievements. Not just scientific achievements, not just economic achievements, because if you understood the Babylonians during this time frame of the story, from that point, up to that point, the Babylonians had built a great city-state. It was the wealthiest state in the world. So with their unification came wealth. With their unification came great agriculture. With their unification came peace. They mainly only fought wars in defense of maintaining their peace. So we can have that kind of peace when we raise our elevation. And it's not an easy thing. We all struggle. I will struggle, you will struggle, we will all struggle. But we will struggle even more so when we ignore it, when we cast blame towards someone else, when we say that you're taking down our monuments, when you say that you're taking our history, when you say that you're taking our neighborhood, when you come in and you over-police us, when you decide that we're going to send your kids to fight wars that we would not fight ourselves, when we use the military against the American people or any other person's period, when we try to determine what another country should do based on how they live in their culture, we are not in the best situation to tell someone else how they should be and how they should live. But we are in a situation where we can raise our vibration. We all start somewhere. Some will start at the base chakra. Some are at the base chakra. Others are at the throat chakra. Some are at the third eye chakra. But everyone is somewhere within that range. And the goal is to raise our vibration, to come in unity with one another. And one of those things would be to form one government over the world. and you say that that's conspiracy, that's crazy, that can't be. Well, let's look at the turmoil of this year. Now, I can easily, as a black man, focus on the police brutality in the black community and that sort of thing. But first, let's look at COVID-19. Regardless if you think that it was built in a lab, regardless if you think that it was created by China, regardless of what political affiliations have told you what it is, or this medical doctor says one thing and that medical doctor says another thing, this country is experiencing it more harshly than the other country. If we were all under one world government, then this situation could have been handled much easier. Meaning that under one world government, and let's just say I was president of the one world government, I would have shut the world down for at least a month. At least a month. Early on, when it first started, I would have, when it was just in China and hadn't spread too far, shut the world down. Or if I was late and it was February, it's March, shut the world down. For at least a month, I would have shut it down. The only people who would have been moving would be police forces, military. The only other people that would have been moving would be doctors and those getting people to the doctors. I would have made sure that everyone was given a stipend to be able to have groceries and food and be able to pay their bills for the 1 month, 2 months. We would have just, out of the world treasury, we would have just paid everybody to make sure everybody's taken care of in their homes. And I would have restricted the movements. Now, we know from, I would have listened to historians who have shown that the way that the Spanish flu and any other pandemic that happened in any region of the world, the first way that it was controlled was by isolation. So I would have isolated everyone. Not in a system of martial law, because it would have been termed. It would be, we're going to do this for a month, or we're going to do this for 2 months, and then after that, everybody goes back. But we're going to do that, and if we had 100,000 lives would have been saved. Sure, some still would have passed on. Some still would have transitioned. But I believe at least 100,000 plus would not have perished through this COVID-19. We would have nipped it in the bud in very, very early on, giving people's bodies a chance to adjust, giving those who had it a chance to create their antibodies, and not pass it on to the next person, the next person, the next person. And then we would have been able to take the time to go to work on a way to cure the disease, not vaccinate, but cure the disease. Instead of having rush studies, we've seen rush studies out of Stanford and rush studies out of UCLA that have now been shown that incorrect math was used, incorrect integers were done, that they rushed through trials and didn't go through the proper steps of culturing their trials, and many other places that are saying they have vaccines are rushing. This would have given us time to do it properly, to minimize side effects. But I see Big Pharma at work. I see government fear during a political campaign time at work. So if that was the case, that's what I would have done, just in that alone. Just in that alone. But we do see that the world is becoming more satisfied. When have we ever seen the world come out for police brutality towards black men? I mean, the world saw Rodney King get beat. The world have seen black men getting shot. The world have seen have seen Sandra and being murdered, and we've seen Breonna. But the world witnessed and watched and looked into the eyes, and the eyes are the seat of the soul. They looked into the eyes of a man, a black man, regardless of his history, regardless of his past. You looked into the eyes of a black man crying out for his deceased mother, and you watched him die. And the world was finally hangry enough that it required satisfaction. And what I'm saying is that in order for us to come in unity with each other, that the story of the Tower of Babel is a story of raising your vibration to that of the highest level, so that we come in unity with one another, that we begin to walk with each other in harmony, that through harmony we create one world, one people, and that is it. There's nothing else beyond that, because after that we become one people, one world. We become one spirit, one energy, and everything in the universe is energy. And once we are unified in energy and unified in the universe, then there is nothing that man can't bring about. There is no peace that we can't bring about. There is no level of harmony we can't bring about. We can end so many things by doing that. And unfortunately, the reality is there will be those who will still fight against it. There will be. But we cannot worry about the few that will fight it, but only focus on the many that will come in unity with one another. So y'all have a great day. Remember, you got to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good vibrations, good journey.